Adi, have you ever wondered how chocolate boxes got so fancy? Like, who decided to put chocolates in velvet lined boxes with little paintings on top?
Oh, you have no idea how wild that story is. Imagine two super strict Quaker brothers. Think plain clothes, no art, no music, suddenly inventing the most decadent chocolate box Victorian England had ever seen, and all while living on the edge of poverty themselves.
Quakers. Weren't they all about simplicity and self denial? How did they end up making luxury chocolate boxes?
Exactly. That's what makes it so fascinating. The Cadbury brothers, George and Richard, were raised to believe that anything indulgent, art, music, even fancy food, was basically a distraction from God. But as they tried to save their struggling chocolate business, they ended up creating something totally opposite to their upbringing, the fancy box.
So, how did they even start? Did people actually want these new chocolates?
Not at first. Their sales guy, Jones, took the new cocoa essence to North Wales, and people hated it. He'd give shopkeepers a taste, and they'd make faces like they'd just swallowed vinegar. But Jones kept pushing, and eventually got a few orders. The Cadbury brothers were thrilled, but it was a rough start.
That's hilarious. So, their first product bombed, but they didn't give up?
Nope. And while they were hustling to sell cocoa essence, they realized they had a ton of creamy cocoa butter left over. Instead of wasting it, they started experimenting with eating chocolate, mixing cocoa butter, sugar, and cocoa liquor to make a smoother, richer bar than anyone else.
So, that's how eating chocolate got started? Just using up leftovers?
Pretty much. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of copying their rivals' plain, rough chocolate bars, the Cadburys wanted to make something luxurious. They dreamed up the Fancy Box, a collection of decadent chocolates with French names, wrapped in velvet, lined with silk, and topped with little works of art.
That sounds so over the top, especially for Quakers. Didn't they feel guilty?
Oh, totally. Their whole tradition was about plainness and restraint. But it's kind of ironic. Their own lives were super Spartan. George wrote that he spent just £25 a year on everything: travel, clothes, charity. He said if he'd married, there wouldn't have been a Cadbury business at all because he was saving every penny just to keep things afloat.
So, they were living simply, but making these boxes that screamed luxury?
Exactly. It's like their self-denial made them appreciate indulgence even more. And get this, their dad wouldn't even allow a piano in the house because music was worldly. Painting was considered a dangerous distraction. But Richard ignored all that. He started painting his own designs for the chocolate boxes, using sketches from his travels and even pictures of his own kids.
Wait, so the art on the boxes was actually his daughter?
Yep. One of the most famous boxes had a painting of his daughter Jessie nursing her kitten. The Birmingham Gazette raved about it, calling it chaste yet simple. But for the time, it was a huge deal, combining art, luxury, and chocolate in a way that was totally new.
That's wild. But how did they actually make all these fancy boxes? Wasn't it hard to produce?
Oh, it was chaos. They were cramped in tiny rooms, trying to cool chocolates on windowsills, sometimes dropping entire batches into the yard below. Workers like T, also J. O'Brien remembered the Cadbury brothers working right alongside them, packing boxes, beating creams, even traveling the country to get orders.
So they weren't just the bosses, they were in the trenches with everyone else?
Exactly. And that's part of why their workers respected them so much. But it was a real struggle. Even as the fancy box started to sell, the company was barely scraping by. The brothers' commitment and willingness to break their own rules about art, luxury, and even business kept them going.
You know, this reminds me a lot of how companies today try to balance their values with what sells. Like brands that start out all about simplicity or ethics, but then end up making luxury products because that's what people want.
Totally. Or think about how minimalist brands now use fancy packaging to stand out. Sometimes the packaging is more expensive than the product. The Cadburys were doing that 150 years ago, wrestling with the same questions. How much do you stick to your principles when the market wants something else?
And the whole thing about art and advertising. Now, every product is about the experience, not just what's inside. It's kind of the same debate, right?
Absolutely. The Cadburys were among the first to realize that selling chocolate wasn't just about taste, it was about emotion, presentation, even aspiration. That's still true today, whether it's luxury chocolate, sneakers, or tech gadgets.
So, the next time I see a fancy box of chocolates, I'll think about two Quaker brothers living on almost nothing, breaking their own rules to make something beautiful, and struggling just to keep the lights on.
Exactly. Their story shows how innovation often comes from tension between values and survival, simplicity and luxury. And it's a reminder that the debates we have today about branding, ethics, and what really matters in business, they're not new at all.
It's kind of comforting, actually. Makes me feel like we're all just figuring it out, one chocolate box at a time.
That's the truth. History doesn't repeat, but it sure rhymes, especially when there's chocolate involved.
That's it for today's episode on Fun Learn Talks, where stories from business, technology, and history keep your curiosity alive. If you enjoyed the journey, make sure to follow, rate, or share it with a fellow curious mind. And hey, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment or connect with us online. I'm Anu, and I'll catch you next time, right here on Fun Learn Talks. Until then, keep learning, keep wondering.